Welcome. My name's Chris Jones, and this is not Spiritual Hot Sauce Podcast, but this is a recount of what I've learned from Spiritual Hot Sauce. And I think what we're going to call this, that sounds like reverb. That sounds like the old reverb. There we go. Is that better? I sounded like I was coming down from the mountain, which is exactly what we're not talking about today, which is building mountains to God and finding something different. So last time I was here, I had a guitar, and I gave a crazy sermon about how we have to allow God to tune our hearts so we can be used to bring basically music to humanity versus tuning ourselves to what we want to be, and we don't sound near as pleasant. And I also had just launched the podcast. Now we're up to 40 episodes, so it's doing very well, and it covers a lot of different topics, and we're going to get into all of that. But it's what it is. It's what I have learned from doing the podcast. And the podcast serves in a very unique place. And it just kind of happened, and I got shuffled in an area. But in the place of after deconstruction of, I wouldn't say your faith, but religion or evolution or reconstruction, that's kind of where I'm at. But it is not for deconstruction. It's for anybody that just wants to see a different perspective and hopefully have a more personal encounter with God. Now, in this, I cover a lot of different topics, and I have a lot of different guests, and there's three primaries I have. I have my regular episodes where I try to not sound sermon-y, but they sometimes lean into that, but they're kind of teachy, even though I don't consider myself a teacher, but they give insight into how we probably should need to work on, as I say often, move away from becoming just a worshiper of the deity of Christ and moving into becoming a disciple of Christ. And that's what the whole podcast is about. So that's primarily what I do. Now I have another one which is called The Deep End, because some of you have heard me speak before, and I get real, Jungian, psychology, philosophy, and I get into the deep end, and most people are like, okay, I'm done, And some people really like it. So I mentioned to somebody that I'm learning to be more practical on the podcast. I was a guest on theirs, and they deal with the deep end. He says, oh, no, you got to keep doing what you're doing. I was like, well, we'll do a series then that will be intermittent, and we'll call it The Deep End. But I need to speak more practically, so this is more helpful to us. But I also cover stuff like inner spirituality, perennialism, But the big one I'm having now that I focus on is called Scars That Speak. And man, is it powerful. It's people that have been through trauma and suffering where they found hope where they probably shouldn't have, where God has met them where they're at. And typically when you have those kind of series, I know in a typical religious fashion, they come out where everything is perfect, and these aren't. These are not everything's perfect. Matter of fact, one of the stories I'm going to be sharing, I'm going to have to speak for them on one of the episodes, is because they're no longer with us. But they're powerful stories, and we can learn from them and be inspired by them. And I'll get more into it. So I've had a lot of different guests, and I've had to learn how to be a host, because as a host, I found myself speaking more than my guest. And my first guest was this guy. And that's not Jose Monkey. That's H.L. Hussman. Stop. Where am I, H? No, H, if you haven't heard this, God bless H, because H, this was a powerful episode, and to this day, it's my most listened to episode. And despite the fact that I did such a horrible job in interviewing, because the whole thing was he gave a message here one time about, he said, this is how I want to be remembered. This is the message that I want people to hear. And so that's kind of what we dove into. If you haven't listened to it, you need to go listen to it. It's on Apple Podcast and Spotify, wherever you find podcasts, on YouTube. It's on there, and you can go listen to it. I think it's episode 16. But H did a fantastic job, and he started, we named it Unlearning Religion. And the reason why is H made a statement that I used to say to other people. And he said, if the idea and concept of hell hasn't traumatized you, then you didn't take your faith serious enough. And I was like, Wow. And he started speaking about the fact that even though he doesn't believe in an eternal torment now, and I'm paraphrasing, that it still haunts him. It's still there, and it affects things. But he started speaking about God in ways that started making me think that if I had a child, which I have, my children, and I think of them, and then if we are the children of God, and if God says, if you don't get that right, then I'm going to throw you into the fire, what kind of parent would you be? Horrible parent. That's right. That's right. What's a parent say? It's okay. It's okay. Come on back. We'll try it again. You got this. You can do good. You got this. That's a father's love, right? That's a mother's love. They want to see their child do well. So it's not about sin as in punishment, as H would say, a punitive God, but it's about a loving father who wants to see you do better and have better, which sometimes does require change. It does require us to see things differently, but it gets us to a better place later in life. And that's the point H was making. And I was like, man, it's said so beautifully, and I'm messing it up, and I'm not conveying near as well as H did. But it's a fantastic, fantastic message, and I think everybody should hear it. I also talk to different kinds of people. Anybody recognize that guy? The Dalai Lama. So the guy on the left, his name is Wayne Teasdale. He's no longer with us. He's a famous Catholic lay monk. What makes him famous is he wrote a lot of books. He coined the phrase interspirituality, and he wrote the book, The Mystic Heart. He is also, or was also, Advaita Vedanta from Hinduism, one of their monks, which is how he ended up here. And in 1992, they had a world religion conference called the Synthesis Dialogue, where all these different faiths came together and shared. Now, it wasn't about becoming interspirituality and seeing it as one, but it was like perennialism, which means you see other things and other faiths that you can use in your own that helps you in your path. The guy on the right, that's Brian Muldoon. He was a part of facilitating this. Now, Brian is the one that was on the podcast. Brian has become a friend of mine. We're probably going to do a third one, but Brian is known, but he's known for something else. He wrote a book called The Art of Conflict, and you probably don't know what that is unless you've been to law school, because it's used to teach law. He is a groundbreaking lawyer and played judge for a while, but he was also a huge part of this. Now, I will tell you a story from this. This is incredible. Wayne Teasdale seen himself as a disciple of Christ, much like I do, rather than just being religious in it. He and Brian were going to meet with the Dalai Lama at where he was housed at, and where, the business went on from the Dalai Lama. And when he got there, it was Brian and Wayne, because they were getting ready for this World Religion Conference. They come up to the complex where the Dalai Lama is, and they found there was a lot of lepers there begging. And immediately Wayne Teasdale got out and said, Brian, come here. And Brian said, because Brian said that Wayne Teasdale changed his life. And I said, well, how did he change your life? And he tells this story of how he changed his life. He said, so I went over there, and I was expecting to give money, give food. No. He said, we got to know them. We talked to them. We're going to be late with our meeting with the Dalai Lama because of these lepers. But as we're getting to know them and loving them and taking care of them, he said, I started to realize what we're here for, what we should be doing as disciples of Christ. And that's why I said, that sounds like a disciple of Christ. He said, exactly. And Wayne Teasdale, according to Brian, didn't care who his friends were. If you weren't doing what you should be doing, he was going to call you out. And he went in and called him out at the Dalai Lama's home and said, this shouldn't happen. You shouldn't have lepers out here begging. And one of the things in the conference that Wayne had told the Dalai Lama is you need to incorporate more compassion for others. I was like, wow. Telling the Dalai Lama, you need to be more compassionate. But he did. And the Dalai Lama said, you're right. Now, Brian said later on he had to go back himself to meet with the Dalai Lama to get all this worked out. And the taxi driver said, "Hey, your friends are waiting on you." He said, "My friends? I don't really have friends here." And he goes, No, come on, I'm going to take you to your friends. So they drove to an alley, and when he opened the door, there was all the leopards with their hands out, and they wanted to talk to him and see him. And he said that what he got from that started changing everything. Now, I had this guy on. Some of you probably know who he is. That's John Williamson. He's the host of the Deconstructionist podcast. Now, he doesn't deal with just deconstruct and move from God, but he deals with reconstruction and finding your way back to God, but through a more healthy expression. He's been a leading voice in this movement for 10 years. This podcast has been going. It was a pretty big one. And we had a great conversation. And he said something that hit me, because I'm not very good at speaking practically. I think we all know that. I speak, metaphysically sometimes and using psychology and metaphorically. But John's really good at just being practical. And I always talk about growth and progression and maturing. And John says, we all have to start in our faith on square one. So if you receive Jesus as your Lord and Savior, if you receive Jesus as what you are trying to be like as a disciple, however you receive him as faith, whatever you want to call it, you're going to start on square one. But the idea is to move to square two, to move to square three, to square four, and so on, and grow and progress. And how you see God will change and evolve through this progression. That's what the point was. And he said the problem is when you stay in square one and you don't move on, but you stay there and you grow there. That if you're serious about your faith, later on you will come to a point where everything you believe, you're going to have to deconstruct and break it down, as painful as that is, so you can move on and get on with it. And I thought, that stayed with me. I started kind of changing how I seen things. Now, right now, I started a series. I'm in the middle of it. I got one more. It's called Rebuilding Faith After Deconstruction, Finding God Again. Now, it's got deconstruction in there because I list John Williamson as the inspiration for this. He inspired it with the blocks, but everything I'm about to share with you, I can't put on him because I don't know if he'd agree with it, but it's what I came away with it, and I've been kind of thinking about it ever since that episode, and we started in this series. 2 or 3 parts, and the second one just went out Thursday. This one will go this Thursday, but it's not aimed at deconstruction. That's just some verbiage because it kind of triggers and lets us know it's outside of dogmatic religion. That's it. So wherever you're at with your faith, hopefully you'll find some value in this. But here's kind of the thinking. That we start on square one, and we don't move on like we should, like John was talking about, square two, square three, and so on, and progress and grow. Now, what I want to say is everybody has a journey. Everybody has a path, and none of our paths look alike. So I'm not saying that we all get different religions. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is your personal journey after square one, where we all start, it starts looking everywhere. It starts going everywhere. We all have a personal path of where we have to go. Our destination is the same. But how we have to get there is many different ways in our personal relationship with God outside of religion. See? Think of it like this. Square one, where we start, if we don't move on, but rather we start piling on top of square one and we start building this on top of square one, we start building a mountain to God. It starts becoming a mountain of merit, earning your way up to God, which creates hierarchy. It starts creating weird stuff in sin and what that means, because it's outside of that relationship, like Ace talked about, of a father's love saying, in your path, you can do this. You can get over that hurdle. You can get through this. Instead, now you feel oppressed. Now I'm bad for doing that. I'm not as good as them. I need to do better. I think about James, the first pastor of the church of Jerusalem, ground zero for Christianity. James could have put his throne on the top of the mountain and sat and looked down at everybody who aspired to be him. But that's not what he did. He took the posture of Christ and he got in the ditch and started helping people out of the ditch and getting them out of suffering. Come on, you got this. You got this. He acted like Jesus. You know? He made himself a servant. He made himself a servant instead of building a throne. Because it was about helping other people get to a better place in their path and in their journey. And how we need to go and how we need to see God. See, what we do is, and I'm going to qualify with what I'm about to say, I'm not talking about daylight. I love daylight, and everybody knows I'm a part of daylight. But in the church, traditionally, not all the time, but a lot of times, what we do is we come in, here's the church, we put a big cross up front, and that's God. That's what we all have to assimilate to. It's a one-dimensional idea of God, that how we see God is we all need to see it the same. We all have to change and assimilate to that one thing. We come here because now we've made this the destination. And now we stand at the pulpit and we speak down, creating the hierarchy. And I'm not speaking against community because we're told to be in community, but not like that. There it is. That's it, you found it. That's me. So, it's okay. It's okay. It's all good. No, don't be embarrassed. It happens. But so what we do is we make this big cross to God. And it's in there where you have to assimilate. It's in that we start feeling shame because now we're not good enough. We are not right. We don't look right. We have to change and conform to that cross. Which reminds me of Jesus and his relationship with the disciples. When the disciples came together, there was an image, an experience they had that was one-dimensional with Jesus. Jesus did teach them in a group. Jesus did train them. Jesus did do this. He did speak differently. When you read the scriptures where Jesus is speaking to the group, he speaks differently than when he speaks to them one-on-one. What's Peter's relationship with Jesus? That's a hard relationship. Jesus challenged Peter. Think about this. Jesus literally rebuked Peter and called him Satan. Wow. He challenged Peter. But here's what I want you to hear. That is the way that Peter needed to get it so he could go on square one, square two, square three, and four and grow and get to the destination he needed. Now, he had a relationship with John the Beloved, completely different. Completely different. John, come here. Oh, John, I love you. It's okay, buddy. I got you. I had a friend and we were going through I'd come back and found my faith, and he'd come back and found his faith. And we were comparing experiences, and he said, that's how he said his experience was. He goes, it's like God picks me up, and he puts me on his lap, and he cuddles me, and he says, I love you. I love you. And I said, yeah, that's not the experience I got. And that's not what I get. It's like I get smacked in the back of the head sometimes. I say, Chris, shut up and get over here. Okay. But that's how I need to hear it to get to where I need to. But see, John had to be loved. But make no mistake, John went to square 2, 3, and 4. Listen to me. Both John and Peter ended up in the same destination. They were willing to be martyred. They were there. They were ready. Jesus had prepared them well. They were ready to go. Let's spread the gospel. Let's do this. How they got there, completely different. If Jesus would have treated John the Beloved like he treated Peter, John would have been traumatized. He wouldn't have been able to go on. He'd been done. He'd been out. I can't conform to that. I can't be that. And if Jesus would have treated Peter like he treated John, he wouldn't have went anywhere. He would have been awkward, have been uncomfortable. This isn't me. This isn't who I am. We all have a different way that we need to see God. The big cross up front, that's not how you need to see God. That's how you need to see community. And Paul says in 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 3 and 4, that the reason why we have community is so we can encourage and comfort one another with the same encouragement and comfort that God gave us. How are you going to get the encouragement and comfort, though, if you're standing here staring at the cross trying to assimilate to that? You're going to have to get out there in your path in real life and learn how you need to see it. We're on a year now of the tornadoes that happened back where I'm kind of from, that Somerset. And this is a church that most of my life growing up I've been past. So I went down there to visit, and I stood in front of this church like this. And as I stood in front of this church, I got weird. And I kind of understood kind of what I do. And I seen this, and I realized this is how we all should be living. It should not be a destination where we keep God in this box in the cross and we assimilate, and through the week we feel bad about what we can't do and what we should do and this, that, and the other. And the life that Jesus brought us happens out there. You should be in this weird, beautiful flow of coming together in community, encouraging with what you was encouraged with in your journey as you go back out into life. Now, I do a series called Scars That Speak. This guy's name is Brent McKay. He was the first to go on the episode, or the series of Scars That Speak. Brent had a hard life. He was sexually molested by an older brother, so he had trauma from that. He got into religion that was a mountain-based religion, like we were talking about. But he went into seminary, got his degree, became a pastor. But the whole time he was having this inner conflict. There's this fight within him of trying to figure it out. Because as he's not understanding, because as things is going along, what's supposed to be working isn't working. Where's the peace? Where's the joy? Where's the love? Where's all this good stuff? It wasn't happening. So he decided, I'm stepping down. And he did step down. Him and his wife and his children relocated. He started a new career and profession and just went a different way. He didn't abandon his religion. He was still trying to figure it out. Now, his son was 10 years old. His son's name's Noah. And his son started complaining about having stomach pains, and he couldn't breathe really well. So they took him to urgent care, and they said, he's fine. He's probably bruised a rib. He'll be all right. Give him a few weeks. A few weeks later, he went to a teacher conference, and noticed when they was going up the steps, his son just couldn't do it. He just didn't have the air. So he was worried. He said, this isn't a bruised rib. So he took him in, and after a lot of testing, they said, we're sorry to tell you, but your son has stage 3 cancer. And it's an incredibly aggressive form of cancer that it can go from 0 to stage 4 in 4 months. You don't have much time. We're going to have to get him in now. Which means they had to go to a special cancer treatment for children that was hundreds of miles away. So Brent's wife stayed there with their family, and he took his son into this cancer center. Well, as they go deeper and deeper, they get to one of the stages. They found out that his lungs, his heart was full of cancer. It would went all up through his body. Very treatable. The problem is the treatment sometimes is as fatal as the cancer. You don't make it always through this treatment. It's a very aggressive treatment. So he's going through this treatment, and they're getting into later stages of it, and it's working. But he gets to this one particular week. He's there by himself, and he's with his son, and the treatment don't react right. He's having a reaction to it. His throat is shredded. His body is, because this chemo, it just destroys your body to get to the cancer. And they've got to be aggressive because the cancer is so aggressive. And he's there with his son for a week, and his son can't sleep. He's crying, he's weeping, and he's just upset. And he's there, and he's praying, God, please, and God, please, please. Praying like he's always prayed in his religion to the big cross up front. And he's praying, God, please help. God, please help. And they get through a week of this. He says he hasn't slept, he's exhausted, he's tired, and he's kind of spent. And finally, they get his son calmed down, and he's able to sleep. So he thinks, I'm going to be able to sleep. But it's at that moment he realizes that he's surrounded by a whole lot of other kids, some alone and dying by themselves. And it was too much. And he said, I broke, and I went to God, and I said, even if you don't do anything for me, if you don't do something for them. So he said it was in that moment, I took my religion and I threw it back to God, and I said, I don't want this. I don't want it. This don't work. Take it back. I'm done. And he said, as soon as I did that, though, like that, this wave of peace and comfort. And he said, just immediately, the bed they'd given me, I laid down, I went to sleep and slept 8 hours. I woke up feeling good. And I said, well, I guess I'm an atheist now. I don't know what to do with this. Now, he said, I didn't know it at the time, but what he had done is he had experienced God devoid of religion. In other words, what was keeping him from having the experience with God was the religion he was holding on to, the one-dimensional God. And once he got rid of it, it was like God said, good, this is what I've been waiting for, here. And he said, now from that point on, things started changing. It's been years later, and he started having these experiences with God. He started getting a different way. He's come back to his faith. As he would tell you, I'm a Christian. I'm Christ-centric, but I'm not dogmatic. I don't believe what I used to. I believe in what my path and my journey has given me. And in that, I have found life. He had to figure out how he needed to see God. Now we got somebody else here. I got my buddy Abby. There she is. What was it, Abby? Shazam. Here's my face. If you haven't heard Abby's episode, you should go listen to it. I learned some stuff from Abby. And I'm just going to give you a brief overview of Abby. Abby was in missionary work, and she was over in India helping kids, very impoverished place, on concrete floor, helping them. And she was going to Thailand with a head full of lice, and she got there, and she got on a motorbike and had a wreck. Except it wasn't just a wreck. Hit her face, took her out. She was unconscious for a long time. She almost didn't make it. She probably shouldn't have made it. But while she was there unconscious and like autopilot was on, the people, the witnesses around her said, you know, when you were coming in and out, you never came conscious, but you would say you was calling to Jesus. That's what you were saying, you was calling to Jesus. But she was in a place that after, thank God, she got better. You know, she lost a lot of memory. She still don't have memory from that time. There's a lot of physical things that come from that. But as she went on, she started getting to a very dark place, a very dark, dark place, where she went to God feeling like, I wished I hadn't lived. Why? I'm a burden. What is there for me in this? I mean, it's just dark. What I want you to hear is, like, in this community, there's no amount of encouragement. There's no amount of comfort. There's no amount of love from us that's going to fix that. But God spoke to her, as she said. And God said, Abby, when you were calling my name, I was calling your name. And that is how she needed to see God. Because as from that point on, she started growing in a different way. She started on a different journey. It wasn't instantaneous, just like Brent's wasn't instantaneous. But it was what they needed to hear at the time. It was how they needed to see God. And for Abby, of something she said that I thought, man, she said, not only was it me seeing kind of God, but it was how I was seen by God. How I was seen by God. And once you realize how God sees you, that it's not here, that it's out here. You know? It's like H says, it's like your Father with you. Come on, Abby, you got this. Come on, let's get up. It's just going to be okay. You're going to go that way. And when you get there, it's going to be good. You're going to be happy. The dark will go away. You're going to outrun the dark. Now, some of you know this guy, Kyle Whitaker. He's been on the show a couple times. I really like Kyle, which is weird because Kyle's PhD is in philosophy, and I'm the one that gets all metaphorical, and he's practical. But on the second episode, he said something. Well, he says more than something. He shared his story. We went deep into his relationship with God and how he experienced God. Because some of us might be hearing, you got to be in the ditch. I mean, you got to have the world stomping you down before God shows up. That's not true. That's not true at all. So Kyle, in his episode, his second episode, said that it was a time in his life when he was pushing in with God. Pushing in with God. He wanted to know what God was like. He wanted to know the nature of God. And he said that he had been pushing in, he had these experiences, but he was sitting kind of at a friend's place, and his friend got up and left for a while. He said, I was just sitting there and reading, and then it was like an entity walked into the room, sat down right beside me in the couch, and what I felt from whatever that was, which I think was Jesus, I felt love. I felt peace. I felt joy. I felt hope. And while I was there in the presence of this, it began to change him. Rob Field, he's a director from the Center of Spiritual Wisdom, have him on the show. And he said, if you have a real encounter with God, a real one, it will change your DNA. It will rewire you. It will change the way you think. It will change your path. And that's what happened to Kyle. Kyle said he had this amazing experience, and it was such a connection on a deep level that when his friend walked back in and it was over, he had to go to the bathroom and lay on the floor, and he wept for like 10 minutes. But then Kyle said that even if I tried to get rid of this, even if I tried to convince myself that it was in my head, he goes, I don't think I can. Why? Because it's in his DNA. And no matter where he goes, or no matter what he does, he will always have that experience, as he says, that's in the background of how he sees God. He sees God as love, mercy, forgiveness, hope. It's hope. But this journey I'm talking about, that's the journey. It's outside of here. This is where we come together to encourage each other, and we can tell each other these stories, but do you want to go have Brent McKay's experience? Probably not. Do you want to have to go through what Abby went through? Probably not. But we can all push in and learn how we need to see God. So we're not coming in to the big cross. The cross is with us, out there, in life. Here's one of the things I've learned in this space that I'm in, is that people that have went through the deconstruction path, there's a thing called the hurt loop, where you've been traumatized or hurt, that it kind of becomes this repetitive playing thing that just stays with you, and it kind of becomes your identity, and you're just hurt. And even if you get past that, and if you can get healed from some of the trauma that comes from trying to see God in this one-dimensional way that don't fit, you get where you want to reject the idea of, I need to change in any way, shape, or form. I just don't need to change. God just needs to love me how I am. And God does love you how you are. God does love you. There's nothing you're going to ever be able to do to make God love you any more or love you any less. It's parents' love. Is there anything your child can do to make you love them any more or any less? That's your child. It's not about us trying to please God. Do you know what pleases God? Is you having a better life. Is you having a better situation, a better outcome, a better expression of faith. The healing for us is in the process of the journey. God talks to us in relationship. God talks to us out while we're struggling. The church, the good pastors are there in the ditch with us to keep us going. Come on, you got this. Let's get you back up on your journey, up on your path. The destination is the same. The destination is Jesus. The destination is to become like Jesus. That as we go through step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, like Peter and John, we end up loving others in the ditch and helping them get on their path and their journey and helping people when they're hurting. So, I want to challenge you a little bit. I want you to go find out how God sees you. Because most of us don't know. Abby knows. Abby knows exactly how God sees her. And it changed everything. Instead of focusing here, focusing going to God. Unfortunately, we've had such a fear-based religion, it's hard for us to want to go see that guy, that God. I'm afraid of him, Chris. That guy terrifies me. Well, he's been misrepresented. That's not who he is. Go figure out your faith. Go figure out life. Go figure out how you need to see God so you can have a better life. Isn't that why Jesus came and showed us this example? I came that you might have life and have it more abundantly. How will you know if you're always here?